If you ever struggle with pronunciation, you're not alone. French, just like any language, has rules to guide you on how each letter should or shouldn't be pronounced. Now, I won't lie, sometimes those rules can feel complex. But here the good news. Once you get the hang of them, you will start reading and pronouncing like a native. And unlike English, in which spelling and pronunciation can feel somehow unrelated, just think about how the letter OU sound completely different in the words through, tough, thought, should, and course, for example. French is far more consistent. Most French words follow a clear, predictable set of rules. Sure, there are few exceptions, but they are much fewer and easier to handle. But here's the catch. These rules aren't learned overnight. French evolved over centuries and pick up layers of complexity along the way. It's definitely not as straightforward as Spanish or Italian. Better say, French is a language that had mixed influences and of which writing rules are more complex than Spanish or Italian. French pupils are the same as you. Even though they know how to speak French naturally, when it comes to reading it, they must go through a long period of focusing on how to read French properly. And trust me, it pays off. Once you nail those rules, you will confidently read and pronounce any new word you come across perfectly. Mastering these rules will dramatically speed up your learning journey. Your pronunciation mistakes will shrink dramatically, and you will become more independent in your learning process. Instead of relying on audio, you will immediately know how to pronounce any new word just by seeing it written. Ready to level up your pronunciation? Let's dive in with Etienne.
Let's get started. So when you first see a new word in French, like everybody else learning a foreign language, you may happen to be confused about how to read it, especially given how many rules and exceptions to the rules there are. Even if in the end this system all makes sense. And this video is going to teach you which approach or reading techniques you should apply when you see a new word generally. The first thing you should think of when you see a new word is one letter, one sound. Indeed, in French we have set as a general principle that each letter of the alphabet makes one sound, and that you should read words letter by letter and pronounce the sounds each letter makes one by one to read the word fully. Let's take a few examples of this general rule, and this will also be an opportunity to make you travel through France by proxy, as I am only going to take cities' names as examples. I hope you're gonna enjoy it. Let's look at this first word, Albi, famous French town in the southwest of France. Did you hear how I pronounced it? Let's break it down. So the letter A makes the sound A, then the letter L, Al. Then we add B, B, that's Alb. And last we add the letter I, which always makes the sound E. And here we go, Albi, Albi. Let me pronounce it once more, Albi. Another example, Laval, a couple of 100 kilometers in the west of Paris. Again, let's break it down. It all begins with the letter L, so L. Then A, then the letter V, V. What we've got so far, lave. Then another A, and another L, Laval. Let's say it again together, L-A-V-A-L, Laval. Let's take a last example to make sure you've got it right. Colmar, a famous town in Alsace, the easternmost part of France near Germany. First we have the letter C, which is supposed to be pronounced as K. That's our first sound, K. Then the vowel O, Ko. Then L again, Kol. followed by M, colm, and last A and R. Ach, colmar, colmar. So this is really how you should process words in your mind, especially if your mother tongue is not based on an alphabet. For example, if you are Chinese or if you speak ancient Egyptian, which I doubt. There's one precision that I should bring up while I'm at it, although it probably goes without saying. In French, when you see a double consonant cluster, so two consonant letters following each other in a row, they just sound as one sound that consonant makes. So if you see a double M, for example, in a word, you should just read it as one M sound, M. Let's take a couple of examples to show you again. Come travel with me and let's go. First example, in the word Lille, which is a city in the north of France near Belgium, there is a double letter L in the middle. Yet you only read it as one L sound. Listen carefully again. Lille. Lille, Lille. And yes, the final E is silent here, which we will see in another video. Likewise, in the name Narbonne, a city in the southwest of France, near the east of Spain, the double letters N here sound just like one N sound. Narbonne. Listen again. Narbonne, Narbonne. Again, note that the final E is silent here, and again, it's gonna be the topic of another video, so don't worry about it. But you are probably used to it in English anyway, with words such as steak, come, or rose, the E is silent as well. Last example, Arras, one of my favorite towns in France personally, in the north of Paris. Let me say it again. Arras, Arras. Again, Arras. Here, one more time, the double R just sounds like one, no emphasis, no nothing. Yet, as you must have already started to figure, French is not Spanish or Japanese hiragana. Unfortunately, the reading rules are more complex than just one letter equal one sound, and that's why I have spent hours for you putting all of these videos together. This general principle of one letter, one sound is bent by many exceptions that are as many rules you need to learn if you want to be able to read French properly. So again, how should you proceed? Well, what I would personally recommend is, first, start considering the word with that rule in mind, one letter equal one sound. Then, look for exceptions you know. Progressively, these exceptions will become so natural to you when you read that you won't even think about applying them as a mental effort. But for now, that's how you should proceed and approach words. And you already know some of them if you have watched the videos about basic vowel and consonant letters. Let's take a couple of examples again. Look at this word, that's the name of a famous French city in the Alps. I am not going to pronounce its name yet, let's first analyze this together. So first, we've got an A which makes the sound A, then a double N which gives an, then the letter E, an, then the letter C, so normally K, and then a Y, so which is E. Is it something like anarchy then? Well, if you remember correctly, when the letter C is followed by the vowels E, I, or Y, it must be pronounced S as an S, similar to English. Last, at the end of a word, the letter Y sounds like an E if you remember, so that gives annecy. Let me repeat it. Annecy. I know it looks obvious and it's probably how you read it first. Yet, when it will come to more complicated words, that is how you should proceed. Let's look at the second example now. That's the name of the village where Claude Monet, the famous Impressionist painter, used to live. How would you normally pronounce it if you take each letter for the sounds they make? Think a second. Now, let's break it down. So normally, G would sound as G. But here it faces an I, so it must be read J instead if you remember. Then we've got an I and V, so Jiv so far. then normally E should be said but here it is said instead, and you will see why if you watch the video we've made about the letter E. So j'y vais, then r, n, and I. That gives us giverny. Let me say it again slowly. Giverny. Giverny. Ready for another example? Let's look at this word now. That's the name of a famous rocky finger, a spot by the sea in Normandy where the painter Jean-François Millet used to live. Let me give you a clue about this word first. The final E is silent, much like many other words in English. You'll learn that in one of the next lessons as well about the letter E again. Now, how would you read this word? Which exceptions that you know should be applied, especially regarding the letters H and G? Alright, let's look into it in detail together now. First we've got L plus A. Nothing original here, la. Then an H, which, remember, is always silent in French, followed by the letter A, again, la, A, so far. After this we've got G plus U and then E. But do you remember that sometimes we use a silent U between G and the vowels E, I or Y to indicate that the G must still be pronounced G? That's the case here. So that gives la, ag, as both U and E are silent. You see it's getting a bit tougher already, but after doing it once, twice, 3 times, it will become automatic. So let me say it again. La ag. La ag. That's how you pronounce it. Next word is the name of a famous French old town or village near Colmar in Alsace. First, let me give you a little hint about this word. It has German origin. And do you remember what we said about the letter W with words that come from German? Now think, how would you pronounce this word? Remember, letter by letter and look for exceptions. Okay, let's do this together. First we've got an H, which is silent, then U, which sounds U, then N, which sounds N, then A. So that's una so far. Then we've got a W, which sounds like V. Then another silent H, then I and R, which sounds by the way, because it's a final R. So it should be voiceless, remember? Unavir. Good job if you guessed, and don't worry if you didn't, as most French people would read it unawir at first, me included. I thought it was unawir. So let me say it again. Unavir. Unavir. Let's take a last word together. This is the name of a village in Corsica, an island off the southeast shore of France, near Italy. Not famous at all, but I really wanted a simple word with this very exception to finish this lesson. Same drill. Read letter by letter and then wonder if any exceptions you know should apply. Take a special look at the letter S. Okay, nothing difficult here. Each letter sounds as what they normally sound, except the S, as it is comprised between 2 vowels, so it must be said Z, instead of S. That gives talazani. Let me say it again slowly. Talazani. Excellent job if you guessed it right. And that's it for this very short series of reading tips and mental process you should apply when you discover a new word. If you want all of these lessons about phonetics to be useful, I hope it was useful for you first of all, especially if you're not used to learning a foreign language or to the simple fact of having a tricky alphabet such as that of French. I also hope that you enjoyed discovering some beautiful parts of France that are not necessarily very famous. And now, I truly recommend that you go practice your beginner's reading skills in the exercises section following this video, and I am looking forward to seeing you for the next video about phonetics and reading rules in French. Excellent travail et bon courage. Excellent work and good luck to you.